Once I'm your contact, you'll be able to look at my photo stream. Here are some photos. Most of these I just got off Google. Some of them I took myself. You can then go look at my groups. And that'll look like this. You want to find your class. WHS Photography 1, Period 2, Try 3. I'd probably write that down on that handout. Just because there's other ones that are Period 2, like it could easily be WHS 1, Period 2, 2012, 2013. You want to have the Try 3 one. If you click on the group and you don't see under members, myself and Evan, then you're not in the right group. So once you click on the group, it should be over right about here. It should say join group, and then you just click that. And then you're in the group. Done. You are now part of Flickr. So tomorrow when we go down to the lab, what you're going to be doing is basically a little practice for how you'll be submitting all of your photographs throughout the trimester. To do that, you go to My Photo Stream. You scroll down to Sterling WB Edit. This one up here that's black and white I'll delete. In fact, I'll do it now. WB, this is the picture I took. It's a little bluish. The white balance, WB, is off. So I'm going to have you fix it in Photoshop and then resubmit it as if it was an actual assignment. So first you need to get it off of Photoshop. To do that, click on the image and then click on it again to bring it into the Lightbox view. And up in the top right here it says View All Sizes. Click that. And default here will be large, but we want it really large. This might take a moment to load. Make sure it's loaded all the way, and you can just drag and drop it to the desktop. Now, since we don't really need this for any real amount of time, it's not very important. It's fine to just put it on the desktop and delete it later. A more secure place, of course, would be your flash drive. So it's on the desktop. Now we actually have the photograph. Let's minimize this. Right-click, open with Photoshop. Here we are. Now, this is Adobe Photoshop CS6. The computers in the lab are CS3, and the ones in the back of the room, except for the 3 new ones, are CS3 as well. So, CS3, as far as this goes, is pretty much the same as CS6 in regards to the things that we'll be doing. So maybe it'll be a slightly different color, but that's all you really need to worry about. Now, I kind of skimmed over this with the other class. Why is Photoshop awesome? The answer is mostly down to layers. Layers are these things over here. We only have one layer right now, and it's the background layer. If Photoshop was real, tangible stuff, not just this digital program, layers would be like if you had the actual photograph set down on a table, that's your background. And then you can take transparencies, like for overhead projectors, and set them on top of the image. This would allow you to make changes without marking up your actual image and in theory damaging it. So let me show you how that would work then. Some of these transparencies are completely blank. And I'll make one of those now. Just by this button down here, it's when you hold over it, it says Create New Layer. So now I have my background and layer 1. If I get a paintbrush out with black ink, and I scribble all over my picture, I've actually, because I had layer 1 selected, scribbled on layer 1, not the background. So I can turn it on and off, and my picture is undamaged. Some of these transparencies have tints to them. For example, I can do a photo filter. Since this was kind of bluish temperature, I can do a warming filter, and now it's, well, not so blue. I can do a filter that actually seemingly changes it to black and white. The possibilities with this are really kind of infinite. Some of these adjust the actual pixels. Some of them just layer on top of it. I can stack other images on top of this one and make them partially transparent. So this is a really powerful tool, and understanding how to use layers is what makes Photoshop as useful as it is. So for this first practice assignment, all I want to see you do is take the image that is a little bit too blue and fix it in some way. Let me select these, and we will delete these layers. So now we're back to just where we started. Let's first look at some of these adjustment layers that are going to fix it. So the adjustment layers, and this is one of the things that I would definitely write down, is the black and white circle at the bottom. It says create new fill or adjustment layer. When I click that, it brings up all of my adjustment layer options. So anytime your color is messed up in your picture, a viable option is just make it black and white. Click. Now it's black and white. And I can actually adjust the value of the individual colors here. So I can make my blues a little bit darker, but my reds a little bit lighter. My yellows, which there are none. Same thing with the greens. So I can be done right there. If I didn't want to do that, I could, well, there's any number of things I could do. But maybe another easy one would be photo filter. And just put the warming filter on it. I can put the black and white and the warming filter on it. I can make my photo filter, instead of just warming, which I think looks actually pretty nice, I can make it sepia and really saturate it. But I think that made it too dark, so maybe now I go to the brightness and contrast and make it a little bit brighter. So done. More or less fixed. Completely changed, but fixed. Now, other things that I want to have you at least notice at this point about Photoshop. We have our layers window here. We have our adjustment layers that we can create down here. This chart right here is our histogram. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to this picture right here because I think it's a little bit more clear on how to use that. The histogram charts out the values in our picture, ranging from on the left, pure black, to on the right, pure white. So this particular picture is about as neat as it's ever going to get. It's a nice, clean, I don't call it a bell curve, but we have a tiny bit of pure black and a tiny bit of pure white. This little bump right here, if you notice these white spots that she's got, little butterflies, that's that little bump of near pure white. This really kind of lightish background is this big mass right here, and the values on the shirt and skin are all making up this stuff. And that's how it corresponds to the chart. The reason this is important is because these printers, those monitors, the monitors in the lab, this projector, and my screen are not all calibrated exactly the same. If I had a person that was in charge of maintaining the labs and that's all they did, they would be perfect, but they're not. And I don't really want to take the time to set up a whole computer lab of monitors. So when you're making adjustments to get your exposure and contrast and all that just right, you need a monitor that is perfect, which you don't have. So you have to use your histogram. We can do different adjustment layers to adjust how bright and dark things are. So this little one that I've just popped up here, this is my histogram again, but I can make changes. Notice how this is my real histogram. Notice how that's changed. So I've made more things pure black, and you can see that in the image. It was already just fine. I'm not going to change any of this, but so now I'm making more things pure white. Okay? So the histogram, it's important to check. Otherwise, There's no really surefire way of knowing that your image is exposed the way that you want it to really be. All right, histogram, layers. We have our tools over here. There's basic ones, your paintbrush and your eraser. The magnifying glass is very helpful to zoom in and zoom out. When you have that selected, you also have options like actual pixels and fit screen and things like that. Crop tool for cropping. There's a whole bunch of other really useful ones, but I don't want to get into them now. All right, so back to where we were. We've made our adjustments with the picture that we were fixing and our white balance. Before you save on everything you do, you need to adjust the image size. So it goes image, and this is what you need to write down, image, image size. Right now this is set up for whatever Flickr gave us, and that's something that's just kind of really formatted for web, which we're really wanting to format more for printing. So because everyone's photos are going to be a little bit different size, I can't tell you the exact document size to make it, but something about 11 by 17 or 17 by 11 depending on how your picture is oriented. So I'm going to make my width 11 and it made my height 16.5, which is great. My resolution, pixels per inch, needs to be 300. Now when I changed these things, it automatically adjusted my pixel dimensions. Do not ever touch the pixel dimensions. We do not care about those. We don't need to adjust those, and it'll just really get more complicated if we do. And just make sure when you make your document size 11 by 16, you're actually doing that. You're not making your image 11 by 16 pixels. It will be very, very small. All right, and just hit up. What has it done? Made it a little bit bigger. Nothing too exciting. So here we are. So it made it bigger, but I can just zoom back out and it's back to normal. All right, now saving. You're going to do this the same way every time, and it's the most important step because if you don't do it right, it doesn't matter how good your edits were. File, save as. Not save, save as. Save will not bring up as many options as we want for save as. So you're going to title it your last name and then the assignment. Sterling WB Edit is what I'm going to title this one. It's important that you change it from Photoshop to JPEG. JPEG. This is important because it's going to take all those other layers and all this other information that we need, flatten it out, compress it so that Flickr can actually understand what it is. Yeah?
Does that say JPEG or JPEG?
Yes, it does. The abbreviation at the end will just be .jpg, and it needs to have that. Okay, so it needs to be a JPEG format, and it should automatically do it for you, but it should be .jpg afterwards. Save it to an appropriate place. Since I'm just doing this as a demo real quick, I'm just going to save it to the desktop, but a flash drive would be an appropriate place. So I just hit save. It brings up, yes, I'll replace that. And at the highest quality, 12, is usually fine. It took a second for it to come up, but right next to that, it's telling me that my picture is going to be 5.6 megabytes, which is a good size. If you get a lot larger than that, 10, 12, 15 megabytes, often Flickr will struggle to quickly upload the image. So in that case, you might start reducing the image quality, and it quickly gets smaller. If I take it down to 8, it's only 1.2. So I'll leave it at 10. That's fine. Doesn't really matter for this. Hit OK, and we're done.